glory shone around upon FC Halifax town. Shimmy! Shimmy! Shimmy!
So, good evening. We are back with episode 5 of the SHAYCAST. I'm joined in the studio with Sherman Stats, aka Dave Foy. How are we doing, Dave? You okay?
Hello. Yeah, I'm absolutely fine tonight. Looking forward to getting back to it.
This time we have Chris Millington, the assistant manager, so that should be quite exciting. But beforehand, we've had a break from play with no game with the FA Cup weekend. But we've had a few updates behind the scenes, so we'll start off with the injury update. Obviously, you've had
some injury update. The one everybody, I suppose you could say, has been looking for is Captain Matty Brown's progress. So he's been performing very well in full training, and he continues to make good progress. All we can do is cross his fingers for Saturday. If it's too early, it's too early. If it's right, he'll be in the team. There's no way that Pete Wild could leave him out. Danny Williams has also been putting in some work on the training ground, and he's progressing well with his rehabilitation. And we're also having an update on Cameron King, who has been pushing himself behind the scenes and is back on the training field, which is good news.
That is very good news for. So near a full squad then. West Riding County Cup. Something's going on with that as well.
It is. We've rearranged it for the 19th of November. We're away at Yorkshire Amis, and just for anyone who doesn't know where it were, such as myself when it was first announced, it's in Hare Hills in Leeds. I didn't actually know that.
Well, they're doing all right in their. They've got Ashley Flynn, who's quite a prolific striker in the Northern Counties League, which is tier 9, I believe.
Yes, I think they're below. My marker's always Brighouse Town, and they're in the 8th division, so that's like my.
Just one division below that.
Yeah, there must just be one division below that, yeah. Interestingly, we have played Yorkshire Amateurs before in the West Riding County Cup. It had been the mid-2000s, and the attendance was like 60.
Oh, really?
So, in a fashion, that could just be every player's like mum and dad, basically, watching the game.
And a dog as well in there.
And possibly the odd dog and a bit of management team, yeah.
Yeah.
So we have played them previously in this cup.
Amazing. And as well, we've got an event next week, which should be super exciting. I mean, we're going to enter in a media team, but for people that don't know, Pete's Proper Quiz, what's going on there?
Yes, so it's at the Potting Shed next week. That is near. It's up toward. It's Bull Green. It's near Bull Green roundabout, because I don't want to name any public houses.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I don't know how that would finish, but it's near Bull Green roundabout, near what used to be a fairly popular nightclub that has moved further down to Halifax. It's so difficult to do without names, but the Potting Shed is up near Bull Green roundabout, basically.
Have you been to the Potting Shed before?
I've not.
All right, it's first time for me as well.
Yeah, it will be the first time that I've been.
But Pete will be there. I'm not sure if he wants to host it, but he will definitely be there.
I could just see him
at the
wanting
quiz.
to host it. I don't know if he's had a long day, he might not, but I could just imagine him doing a bit of comparing. Like something out of a popular comedy show written by Peter Kay.
Yeah, why not? And then finally, the youth team, they've been in action as well this week, or last week, should I say. What was the result against Alfreton?
So, Town's youth team beat Alfreton 4-1 away, I believe. Obviously, now we have a former link in Billy Heath being Alfreton Town's, I suppose you'd call them first team manager. I don't know if he'll have been there to cast an eye over his youngsters. I know that Pete Wild is actively taking a participation in overseeing certain aspects of his own youth team, so I can't imagine that Heath would have been too far. They've been too far away from that match, especially against old employers also.
Have we ever played Alfreton before? Have you? Do you
competitively?
Or maybe even as a friendly. I mean,
absolutely. We've, especially these past 10 years, we've played them as friendlies. We've even played them in the FA Trophy, and we've played them a number of times in the league. We lost 6-1 when we reformed in 2008 in a friendly in July. We've played them in the FA Trophy and beat them 5-3 in the 14-15 season. We've played them maybe 7 or 8 times in the league, including in the league we're in now. When we got there in the 13-14 season, Alfreton Town finished like 6th or 7th, so they had John Akinde up front.
Oh yeah, he plays for Barnet now, doesn't it? Or
he did play for them. He plays for Lincoln now, and there was a sort of an unofficial story around that particular pre-season that Town had signed him on a pre-contract with a proviso if a full-time club came in for him, we would let him go, and he went to, I think he picked Barnet over us because they offered him full time and he won the league with them also.
Oh wow!
But
Okay.
we ended up going on about John Akinde now, not even one of our players.
Not yet, anyway.
Not
but
yet, I don't think he will be anytime soon, since he's in League One with Lincoln.
So last time you were on as well, you did a little kind of Sherman Stats memorabilia moment, which was quite good. And we also did a piece with Johnny Maynell, and he was talking, the club historian, who was talking about Freddie the Fox and where that came across. And I believe you've done your own kind of, typical Sherman Stats studying on it. So, what have you found out about our mascot, Freddie the Fox?
Now, as a youngster, obviously, before social media and the internet came on the boon, I did exactly what any other anoraks would do, shall we say, and I kept a scrapbook, and I happened to have kept the article from when the Fox first started turning up on the Shay pitch, and it was written in the Halifax Evening Courier when it was a broadsheet by Nick Draney, and the title is "Basil Brush Hunted After Shay Pitch Damage," and it reads thusly: "Keep the Fox out of Halifax is a message coming from the Shay. Groundsman Mr Phil Garside has been looking for an elusive fox which has been visiting the ground and digging up parts of the pitch. I do not know whether it is basil brush or not."
Whacking in a basil brush in there, yeah. Fair enough.
The article also has a picture of basil brush, just for, what the kids have called bants. But anyway, anything is a problem if the pitch is being dug up, he said. The fox mainly goes into the centre circle, which has been covered in small holes, which have to be covered with sand. Mr Garside thought that the fox was coming from the woods behind the Skircutt Road stand. He said that he'd seen it walking around the pitch to forage in rubbish skips, and footprints were visible in the snow. Now in this article there's a picture, a typical local newspaper picture of disgruntled man points at something that is the problem, and he's pointing at the Shay pitch with snow and there's little footprints on it. He said pepper, which is used to scare cats away from gardens, would not work, and he was not keen on doing anything as drastic as trying to shoot it. Fair enough. I do not know what to do about it, but I really do not suppose there is anything really. Halifax Town chairman at the time, Mr John Stockwell, said, "Obviously it is a Halifax Town fan. I have not seen it on match days, but I do not know if it just goes around to the youth team games." Mr Graham Ramsden of Calderdale Council Countryside Service said, "There are a lot of urban foxes now, a lot more than there have ever been, mainly because they feed off waste left by humans. Rubbish, really."
So, how did does it mention anything about how the mascot came around?
It doesn't. I do have sort of little images of when Freddie Fox became manager.
Became
manager,
mascot.
Became mascot. He may as well have been the manager at the time. John Bird weren't doing a great job at that time, so he may as well have been the manager as well, why not? Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, that's Halifax Town's new Freddie Fox mascot,
right,
who was paraded before Saturday's 1-1 Shay draw with Altrincham. The club decided to adopt the fox following the regular visits made to dig up the parts of the pitch by its real-life counterpart who lives in the woodland close to the stadium. And there's a big...
showing a picture of
there,
isn't there? Oh, wow.
There's one, so OT, you can see it. Brackets OT, there you go. And then for some reason that's Jordan Preston against Wimbledon. And then there's one of him with what would have been in inverted commas youngster Noel Horner, who will now be in his early to mid-40s.
Wow.
And look at his curtains.
Wow, that's such an old... I mean, Freddie the Fox looks a bit different there. He seems to have...
Yeah, we've had many different outfits, shall we say. And just for clarification, this picture says, the little... what do you call it? The little tagline goes, Noel Horner, brackets, he's the one on the right, just in case there's any mistakes to be made there, before Saturday's game with Farnborough Town.
So now Freddie the Fox is not on our pitch, he's going around the stand and giving out sweets to people.
Yes,
so
yes he is.
Brilliant. Does it mention anything else about how... So that was pretty much our story then. So he was digging up the pitch.
Yeah.
And then we adopted him as a mascot.
Mascot, yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. That's
simple as that.
Simply, honestly, yeah, it's just as simple as that. We had a fox digging up the pitch. It come in that time when... I don't know whether I now have a biased opinion looking back, because that was when we got our mascot, but it come at a time when mascots were starting to sort of creep into clubs. Obviously the bigger clubs always had their mascots. Yeah. We won't name drop any, but we all know one that was a mascot of a successful team that played in red from a city that isn't Liverpool, the other one. I think Leeds had an elephant.
Well, no, it was
as well.
Well, they had around the area, so it's quite interesting how in Yorkshire we've all gone with animals. So obviously
it's quite
Halifax
strange.
have gone with the fox.
Yeah.
Leeds United went with the peacocks at the time.
Oh, of course,
But,
yeah,
who,
the
but
peacocks as well.
obviously Don Ravy, who was the manager at the time, thought it was an unlucky charm
Yeah.
and got rid of it, which is fair enough, I suppose. And like I say, success came for Leeds then. Huddersfield Town obviously adopted the terriers, so we've all gone with animals, which is quite a...
Bradford City, the Bantam.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Sheffield United, obviously the Blades, but other than that, yeah.
Wednesday, the
all-
Owls as
Yeah,
well.
that's what I mean. Yeah, there's not a lot of Yorkshire clubs are animals. Scarborough, the Seagulls, Hull, the Tigers.
Oh, yeah.
Are we just going to name all of them?
Yeah,
Shall we
well,
just
yeah, go
all
for it.
of them?
Yeah, we've all gone for animals.
Yeah,
so that's
no
okay.
problem.
And
So,
also,
York, obviously the Minster men.
Minster, yeah, that's a bit
Yes,
different.
that's a bit different. Scarborough were the Seagulls or the Gulls. We've been, well, we're obviously the Shaymen, but we adopted a fox. Leeds had a peacock, and they did have an elephant for a bit.
Well, speaking of mascots, have you seen the one at West Brom?
No, you're gonna have to just refresh my memory.
It's a it's well, I have to say it's very famous. I don't know if it's a gender, but and it walks around and it's a boiler, and that's all. It's just a boiler, and it's so.
And it's sponsored by a boiler.
Yeah,
company,
it's sponsored by a boiler company, and obviously they walk around as a boiler, which is quite
ridiculous
funny.
because they have a bird on their badge.
Yeah, but obviously they're
Because
sponsored
of
by a
the-
boiler
yeah.
company.
I'll tell you what York did actually. They were sponsored by a certain chocolate brand, and everybody knows who it is. And there was a certain what's the word I'm looking for? Brand of this chocolate brand, and they had a mascot that was called Yorkie. I think I've just dropped the name of the chocolate bar, but it was a lion.
Okay.
And I can't remember where we were going with this actually. There's some kind of link to it being a lion. It once very kindly told us that we were 2-0 up when nobody was looking, which was quite snide of it, and ever since I've not actually liked York's mascot.
Alright, fair enough.
So, yeah.
Well, anyway, let's go back to Halifax Tower because we got a sidetrack there.
Yeah,
but,
we did, didn't we?
about 2 weeks ago, you went to the stadium and you
I did.
made a little video on the Shay, or the Skircoat stand, or as people call it now, the Skircoat shed. Yeah, what was the reception on that then? Because it was I thought it was quite a nice video that you made.
It was received very positively. The Skircoat shed was what it was called before it was the Skircoat stand. In fact, I was given feedback, thank you for calling it even just the Skircoat shed, because that's sort of like what more of our older end do. I actually mistakenly thought the tuck shop was somewhere else, and it weren't, and people very kindly reminded me where it were. But when I visited that day, I could only assume it was there because that was the only place you could have a shop. So where people are saying he would have had to have had a little like box built, and it'd still been on the steps, so they've had to have put some kind of structure in place to hold it level. I did put that on the forum actually, put it out there for supporters, and nobody actually gave me an answer as to how it was structured at the back of the stand, other than they stood near it, so it was definitely there.
Well, here's the thing, because we put a post out on FC Halifax Town's official social media pages, asking about the first memory of the Skircoat shed or the Skircoat stand.
Yes.
And the reception that we got was amazing. So many people gave us comments about their first memory. Do people feel quite connected to it then?
Absolutely.
Speaking from a fan perspective.
Definitely. I mean, I think as long as it's been there, we somehow got it. It used to be part of Man City's ground. I think it was called like the Hyde Road End or the Hythe Road End. I mean, this is where we could have done with Mr. Maynell, who actually, honestly, I say it every week, honestly, is the real Shaymen stats, really.
Right.
He'd have been able to tell you. It was definitely part of Manchester City's ground at that time. So we've had it over 100 years, and it's seen various facelifts, and we've obviously put seats in. It was terracing, but all in all, we had where the east stand is, as I alluded to in the video. We've always had like a small seating area. It would have been maybe even a third the size of what the east stand is at the moment. And then behind both goals, we have had like places where you can stand, but they were never really like proper stands. They were just. I am sort of speaking from my own experience. Behind one goal, it was just like a tarmac, like slope, I suppose you'd call it. And then what is now the north stand, you could see that it had been terracing, but it long since been condemned. So the Skircoat stand has always, or the Skircoat shed has always been one area of the ground that's remained consistent throughout probably everybody's lives, because it won't have changed that much. So everybody's got memories of it. And one guy commented on my my video. He said something like, "I went down in 1955." It was quite touching actually. And he said I went with, I said his father or his granddad, and he said like people would like shout up, "Does anyone want any sweets?" And it was when he could smoke. "Does anyone want any cigarettes?" And they'd say like yeah, and they'd throw stuff in, they'd throw them into the stand to the people.
Oh, really?
Oh,
wow.
If I just take a minute, I'd be able to read it out word for word. It was really nice to receive this message.
Oh, wow. Because, like I said, my memory's quite short, because mine was sitting on that press bench against Wrexham, and that was my only memory of the Scarecrow shed. So I don't have that kind of connection, but obviously reading a lot of these comments, people were commenting about the meat and potato pies and all that kind of stuff. So it's the longest part of the stadium, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's the only part that hasn't changed, and that's why it holds such nostalgia with people of all ages, because it will have never ever changed. It was Andy Wolfington. He said, "I remember watching matches from the Skircut stand from 1955 when I was 7 years old, and my dad used to take me down. I could keep going all day with the reminiscers. Most of the seating was flat wooden benches, but you could hire a cushion for 2D.
Oh, wow.
That'll just
you
mean
could hire a cushion?
You could hire a cushion. I take it 2D means 2 pence. That even proves our age. I mean, I'm sure that the older end will be like, we know what this is. Anyway, a lad used to come round the touchline with a tray shouting sweets, cigarettes and chocolates. He'd throw them up to purchasers, and the money was passed down through the crowd. That was a different life. You're right, it was the best view in the Shay. I have to watch it from the south stand now. And it's a man playing a clarinet, Andy Wolfington.
Nice, that's a good bit of detail there.
It's a nice piece of nostalgia, and like I say, as we've already alluded to, it's the one part of the ground that hasn't changed for so long that everybody just remembers it. But when it was terracing, it was definitely the best place you could create an atmosphere at the Shay. Almost whatever the attendances were that we got.
Well, what was the biggest attendance then in the Skirco shed?
Or
the biggest attendance at the Shay?
The biggest attendance ever will have been the 1953 Tottenham Hotspur FA Cup 5th round game. And when I tell you how many numbers it is, it will blow your mind. Like, how did this many people fit in there? But it was over 36,000 people watched that game.
Yeah, how does that? Because there's only 12,000, 14,000 capacity.
Yeah, it holds. Yeah, the ground holds at the moment about 12,000, I believe.
Wow, how does that happen then? People just fitted in.
I don't know, but 36,000 people fit in there, and I obviously I weren't there. I can't really. I think we lost 3-0 or we lost 5-0, but it was a Tottenham Hotspur team that, for Tottenham Hotspur, was like part of that golden generation. Nicholson played for them, who went on to manage them to one of their most successful periods. Bill Nicholson.
Right.
I'm just speaking from Johnny's book, really, because I don't have any memories of it, obviously.
No, neither do I.
Obviously, there's not many photographs of that were taken. The programme's always on popular internet sites that you can buy such memorabilia, but prices start at like £20-25, so it's the only programme that eludes me at the moment. Ever. Like, that you
still trying to find it.
Well, no, I can find it, it's just it's not worth £25.
Well, let's see if we get 30,000 on our next home game, which is against Eastleigh, I believe.
Yes.
So yeah, let's see if we get 30,000 there. But speaking of which, on our current management team, assistant manager Chris Millington will be coming in a minute's time. So sit back and we'll get ready for that. Cool. So we are back, joined with the assistant manager Chris Millington. How are we doing? You okay?
Yeah, very well, thanks, Ollie. Yeah, we're all good.
Brilliant. And obviously we're still joined with Dave Foyer, Sherman Stats. How are you?
Hello. I'm fine. Let's kick off the second half.
Brilliant. So, Chris, you're assistant manager of Halifax Town.
Indeed.
So, can you give us a bit of insight into your role and what you kind of do day to day?
Yeah, I think anyone who knows the club probably recognises that one title doesn't necessarily mean one job. So, although my main role is assisting the gaffer and making sure that I support him as best I can in his decision making and his responsibilities, there's also a wealth of other things that I like to take a lead where possible on the training ground. So planning, preparing, delivering, evaluating training sessions. We work quite well together in terms of our planning and scouting of oppositions, and deciding how we're going to set up and approach games. And also keeping an eye on players, so our own and potential future targets. So we have quite a lengthy database of players. So we work quite hard on making sure we're up to speed on who may be coming available, who is available, what the young lads are coming through at various local clubs and what have you. So it's a pretty well-rounded sort of role, but yeah, I love it. It's great.
And so you came in 10 days towards the start of the season, so I'm guessing it must have been pretty chaotic. And your first game was obviously at Oldham Athletic. You know, when you came into Halifax, what was the kind of mood in the dressing room, and how did you kind of get them to kind of play your style and your kind of philosophy?
Yeah, probably, I don't know, is it naive or maybe overconfident in some respects, but we didn't really think about that. We just, because of the shortness of time that we had available, we came in and just cracked on pretty much straight away. We know how we work, we know what we want to see in terms of a style of play, we know how to try and get that out of a group of players, we know what that means for the work we have to do with individuals on the training ground. So we just sort of cracked on and got on with it, and we were dead open with the lads. You know, we said, this is how we work, this is what we want to see, these are the non-negotiables, these are the things we'll be flexible on, and they got on with it. I think for the most part they seemed to be just quite keen to just get on with it, really. They just wanted to play, and you know, the majority of the squad, as you know, is relatively young, and the lads just want to play football. So that's what we gave them. You know, we gave them an opportunity to get out and try and enjoy being on the ball, and an element of freedom within a structure and within certain principles. We wanted to give them some freedom and some ownership of that process.
So is there much you've kind of changed them from? I mean, 10 days, people are kind of, the players will be following the previous manager, I'm sure. But is there much what's the first thing you kind of did when you arrived?
Yeah, we came in and we just got down to working the way we work straight away. So we didn't take into account a great deal of what had gone on previously in terms of how Jamie worked. We had a feel for what he tried to do and his methods, and they're not our way of working, they're not our methods. So for us to try and sort of adopt those to help the lads, and we felt would have been false and would have lacked a bit of authenticity, really. And also, because of the shortness of time, we felt it was vital that we went in and put our mark on it straight away and made it clear to the lads what we wanted and how we wanted to play. And I think, you know, because we didn't have a great deal of time between the first session and the first league game, I think that helped. I think, you know, it made the lads keen to just crack on, and they had the focus of that upcoming game to get the teeth into.
So is it more a case of a sudden change rather than a more gradual, change?
Yeah, we were straight in, and I think there had been a little bit of a break anyway, because, you know, there had been a period of time since Jamie had left, and Clarkey, and I know Steve Nicol had been in and around supporting Clarkey with the first team. So there'd been that little bit of a break where they'd had a different voice, they'd had different methods, they'd had a change, and there was a little bit of firefighting going on, because Clarkey was leading a group of players who weren't ready for the start of a league season, in terms of the depth of squad, in terms of the way they'd been organised, in terms of the number of pre-season friendlies they'd had. So there was a little bit of transitional period between Jamie and between Pete coming in. So I think they'd probably had that, and they'd had a fair amount of uncertainty with it. So I think, for the most part, you'd have to ask them really, but certainly my perception of it was that they were just glad to have a plan. This is what we're about, this is what we're going to do, and this is the way we're going to move forward. So they just got on with it from day one, really.
And we're currently sat third or near, the higher ends of the table. So is this something you kind of expected straight away, or is?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really boring. I've said this before.
You think you're quite interesting. You got quite a few things, but to go through later on. But
yeah, I believe that if we work hard, we've got a system of play. We're good and clear in our methods of coaching, and we've got a squad. We're fortunate in that Jamie recruited a good group of players. That's not to say that we wouldn't have liked a little bit of freedom to maybe bring in some of our own, maybe a few more players that we felt we might have needed. But what was there were good, honest, hard-working, with a good amount of technical ability. So we were able to come in and start playing in a way that we like to play, fast on the counter attack, able to try and maintain possession in the opposition half, fairly solid out of possession, certainly the early part of the season. So yeah, I think it was pretty straightforward for us, to come in and work with them. Now, in terms of league positions, we all want to win. I can't losing. It doesn't do it for me. I can't stand it. It ruins my weekend. It ruins my family life. It drives me mad. It makes me and Pete's very similar. You'll start unpicking everything. Are we doing this right? Did we do enough in that aspect?
Well, Pete did tell. Well, in the last SHAYCAST when he was here, he said that you were at a race or something, or there was a charity event in Manchester, and you and Pete were there talking about football in front of all your family. So is that how it is every single weekend? Constant.
Yeah, it is, and more so when you lose.
Right.
Because we do start to unpick everything. You look at, if we set up correctly, was the game plan right? Was it something that the players didn't implement that we asked them to? Was it something we asked them to implement that they did and they shouldn't have?
Right.
So there's so much goes through your head. Watching the games back is great, because that gives you a real good perspective on what really happened. But for me, it's all about the performance, and if the performance is right, if the game plan's right, and the players implement it to the best of their ability, then 9 times out of 10 the result will take care of itself, and you'll get the result you deserve. There are times when that doesn't happen. But for the most part, the game generally gives you what you deserve. So that's very much my belief, and I believe with this group of players that we've got, it's thin in terms of the number. It's young, but it's they're really committed, and they're hard working, and they're willing, and they'll try, and they'll work hard, and they're not perfect, but no group of players in this league are. You look at every team, and they've all got the flaws, and they've all got their inconsistencies, and Yeovil beaten 4-1 by Hartlepool the other night in the FA Cup at home. Who predict it? So the unexpected happens, but I think if we work as hard as we have been doing consistently throughout the season, if we remain as injury free as you can hope to remain in such a hectic schedule, then I think result wise we'll do very well. And I'm certain that performance-wise we'll do very well.
Some managers kind of have targets. I don't know if you and Pete are like that set targets for the players and have like lists on their in the training field. You should achieve this amount of, I don't know, press-ups or whatever. But you have set targets for.
Go on. Just in what sense? Do you mean in terms of results, or?
Yeah, in results and also at training. So I mean, obviously, I'm behind the screen. I'm not there at the training field. But do you set targets for your players and at training and also for the results?
Yeah. So there's a mixture of ways we use targets. So the players will work on setting their own targets as a group. In terms of each month, we'll look at what we expect to achieve that month in terms of points, and they lead that, so that's on them. And then we reflect on that after every game, and we look to use that as a method of motivating and trying to push forward. In terms of our targets for the players, we've got certain expectations of them. Some of those expectations they're aware of, some of those expectations they're not aware of. So there'll be expectations around how far a player in a certain position should run in a game if we're going to be looking to win the game. So we know what distances a midfielder should cover, we know what distances a fullback should cover, we know what distances we'd expect a centre half to cover if we're looking to win a game. We know our style of play well enough to know that it will require central midfielders to make a certain number of passes into wide areas within a game for us to be successful. It will require the striker, the main striker, which we tend to play with, to maintain possession for the team a certain percentage of the time. So there are a lot of numbers that we're aware of. Some of those we'll share with the players and we'll use to help target them, and some of them we'll just use for ourselves to be able to analyse how well we think individuals are doing against what the aim should be for them, whether it's technical passing forward into wide areas, whether it's distances run, whether it's sprint distances, whatever that may be. We've got a pretty comprehensive list of numbers that help us reflect, help us motivate, help us target, and we used all different methods of that.
How do you get the numbers then? Is it through a system that people wear, like vest or something like that?
Yeah, no, it's because.
Or do you have to physically sit down and write he's run this way?
Yeah, we've built it up over a period of time, so we know in a game where we have 55% or more possession, we know what that will mean for each position. Technically, in terms of where they pass, how they pass, how often they pass, in terms of the distances they run, in terms of the distances they sprint. If we're in a game where we've got equal amounts of possession, so we would class that somewhere between 45 and 55% possession, we then understand what that means technically, how many times we pass in certain areas, how much possession the front players maintain for us, and then anything below 45%, so a game where the opposition has the lion's share of possession and we may be looking at playing more counter-attacking style, we then have a good understanding of what those numbers mean in that sense as well.
So it's all kind of stat related, and then you formulate your...
Yeah, and I mean we can't rule out, there are occasions where there are games where there's exceptions, and we have to be smart enough to be able to figure out that sometimes there's mitigating circumstances, an opposition may play a certain way that mean our fullbacks can't get forward, so the distances they run aren't as high as usual. They may play a system that means, well, we don't pass into the wide areas quite as often because they're more open down the middle. So there are always things that we have to be aware of, but largely the numbers kind of bear out often.
Brilliant. So it seems like you know a lot about that kind of statistics side. But I'm just going to go back to you. How you became involved in football, because obviously you have coached at Kirsten Ashton, Oldham, Macclesfield, Stockport. You've been, you've coached at some clubs. So how did your kind of football journey begin? And you've got a UEFA A license, I believe, as well.
Yeah, I stole it.
All right. Well, we'll keep that off record then. But yeah, how did you get involved in football?
Yeah, how did I get involved? So I played as a kid, as we all did. Did the rounds of what were then centres of excellence and schoolboy setups of predominantly northwest clubs. That, I guess, fizzled out through. I'd like to blame it on injury, but it was probably lack of ability. Yeah, and then had a toy around at the sort of lower end of non-league, but with. The interesting thing, I think, is that at that end of the football pyramid, injuries mean missing work, and missing work means not paying the bills. So it was brief, and then as I came out of football, early 20s, I remember a few years later I still played for local amateur teams, and I remember sitting thinking when I was at Oldham and I was working as the first team coach when Paul Scholes was in as manager, and sitting in the manager's office there as he's come in, this guy who
he's come from the completely different end of the football pyramid.
Exactly. Zidane rates him as one of the best players who's ever played the game. Xavi says the same, and I'm sat there having finished up my career playing for the Spread Eagle in Wythenshawe.
That's all right.
Not a salubrious setup, I tell you. But so you but the great thing is, you find these opportunities and you rub up against these people throughout your coaching life, and the knowledge and the experience that you can pick up vicariously off hanging around with people who've been there and done it is phenomenal. Would
you say that any of Paul Scholes' experience was able to rub off on League Two players?
Yeah, just having him around, you see the change in some of them. I mean, there's some players who've kind of been there and done it themselves to a degree, the likes of Jose Baxter and Peter Clark, who were there at the time, who just having him in the building just lifted them and lifted their performance. But all of them, everybody responded to it. He's, just having the guy around and seeing him operate around the group. It was a very brief spell that he was there, but seeing him operate on the training ground and around a group of players, it was really something else. Not maybe in the type of mould of me and Pete, who were quite thorough in terms of we have to plan, we have to think everything through, we look at every possible eventuality, we try and cover as many bases as we can. His was very much more the sort of the instinct type. He just had an eye for he needs to be there, and it was something else to observe.
I was just thinking more through what I've heard about another one of his colleagues, which would have been Roy Keane. It was the idea that he used to become frustrated by the fact that players couldn't do what he could just do naturally, and that I didn't know if it'd maybe be a little bit like that with Paul Scholes. I mean, he seems like a run-of-the-mill decent bloke, really down-to-earth type fella, especially for the level of where he reached. But I didn't know if there might have been a little bit of that might have been what held him back slightly. I know he only did a little bit at Oldham and then left.
Yeah, there were other things going on behind the scenes which undermined his time there really. But his relationship with the players was great, and his respect for them and their ability was fantastic. And I think he's said it publicly, but he really had an admiration really for the level that some of those players were performing at, given that they don't have it all on a plate like they do at the top end,
Yeah, that rings a bell. He did say
he said with the challenges of difficult pitches for training and these,
Yeah.
all the things that go with lower league and non-league football. The fact that these guys approach it in such a professional, thorough manner, and I know if he walked into Halifax's training ground, he'd be equally as impressed with our lads, because they do. The commitment is phenomenal. And we forget, I think, sometimes that these are young men, and there are a lot of young men out there who don't approach their work with the same commitment and drive and dedication and professionalism. These lads come into work hard, and put the bodies on the line week in, week out for the trade.
And I suppose as assistant manager or as part of the management team, is this something you have to kind of make sure the confidence is there and keep it maintained, to keep that motivation maintained?
Yeah, to a degree. I think, it's easier when you're doing well, so I think, league positions from that perspective are, they help. It's much harder to motivate lads when you're scratching around at the other end of the division, and also if you're leaving lads out and you're scratching around at the other end of the division, it's incredibly hard to motivate them because they can't get their heads around why they're not getting in a struggling team. But I think we sort of bang on about this, and I don't want to maintain a level of humility about how we operate. What we try and do is we try and be as open and as honest with the players as we can. So if a lad's not in the team, we want to explain why they're not in the team. And if it's something they can do something about, we want to give them the opportunity to do something about it. Yeah. If they're not in the team because it's a tactical decision, we'll explain that to them. And if it's that they're not in the team because we've just made a decision based on certain factors, we'll be as open as honest as we can with them. Yeah. So I think to a degree that hopefully gives a level of respect that then we get the level of motivation back in reward. So there are all kinds of ways of motivating players, and I think for me the biggest motivation I can offer them is that we will work hard ourselves into the ground trying to help them become better players, whether the future's with Halifax Town or whether the future's elsewhere. We will work with them to try and help them be better while they're with us. We'll give them equally as much time and attention on the training ground as we will a lad who, like Matty Brown, who's been here years and hopefully will be with us for years to come. But we'll commit to each lad equally, and if someone's future does lie elsewhere, we'll do everything we can to prepare them so that when they leave us, they're ready to hit the ground running. And it's not going to work every time, but so far it does. Lads are buying in, and I think they respect that.
So, like, kind of off the field, then, do you also do social bonding exercises at all, or?
Yeah, little bits. We've not had a great deal of time. It's amazing the schedule. It's crazy. The early season in the National League it's tough. It's really tough.
Got a lot of games
a quarter
every day.
of the season done in 2 months, is it roughly? We played 7 or 8 games in August, similar September. You're talking a third of the season maybe even gone already.
And I can understand the logic behind it. You know, I can understand the thinking. But then when you look at the number of teams that are in the division, maybe there's something that needs to be figured out there, because it's hectic. So it's not allowed us to do as much as we might have liked. You know, we've so far there's been one real sort of social event. So we would have liked to have maybe done a little bit more, but the demands on the playing side have been so heavy that any time we can fit in a training session in between that, we're trying to do that. So,
well, there is I've just got to plug this one, I suppose. There's the Peach Proper quiz coming up. So
there
I don't know if you're entering a players team in that one. So
yeah, we've got a staff team, and I think there's a players team being entered as well.
Yeah.
So
I mean, there's media, there's academy, youth team as well. So there's quite a few of us going around.
We're relying on a lot of 80s pop trivia so that the gaffer can,
I'd
do
be
his thing.
we need Halifax Town trivia, don't we?
Yeah.
We'll just clean up.
Right. Okay. We've got Jacko as well, the kit man.
Oh, yeah.
He's remarkably good actually. We were on an away trip recently, and we took the time to watch Bullseye. Do you remember Bullseye?
Yeah. Just
Jim
about.
Bowen.
Yeah.
Quality, absolutely great. But Jacko was fantastic. He absolutely hammered it. He would have won the caravan at the end.
Did you watch Bullseye on the telly?
Yeah, we were in the bar at the hotel.
Right.
He smashed it. Oh yeah, sorry, we went there.
No, sorry. I didn't understand the rules of the quiz. You were watching it on the TV and he was answering the questions.
Yeah, and he was brilliant. So
I wouldn't fancy him throwing darts in real life.
No, that'd be funny.
Maybe give that to someone else. Delegate that one. We did also ask the fans as well a few questions, so you might know him, but Stephen Hale is a goalkeeper coach. And he asked, do you still drink 15 cups of coffee a day, or are you cutting down?
No, that's very good of him, thanks Steve. No, I do drink a lot of coffee. I do drink an awful lot of coffee, and I don't even like it that much. I just need it. I think if I could get it intravenously, that'd be better, because then I wouldn't have to taste it. But
it's become a thing, because when obviously you're at the Shea Stadium, you're walking around with the mug in your hand, and it's just become a thing. It's quite
embarrassing, isn't it?
No, it's good. It's good. It's a bit of character building. We'll go with that.
Yeah, all right. I'll stay with that.
And Stephen Rushton also asks, has training differed this week, because we haven't had a game, or is it still pretty much the same?
Yeah, lots of the same. The lads have done more running. So again, because of the schedule, there's not been as much just running in training. We try and do a lot of the fitness work with the ball, but we like to get running involved, because there is a level of fitness that you gain from simply doing running drills. But also there's a psychological benefit from being able to run the lads, which, because of the schedule, because of the lateness of the time that we came in, and because of the schedule, we've not had the chance to do it. So there's been a lot more of that this week, mixed in with the usual drills and practices that we do.
Would you have rather, alluding to what you said earlier, would you have rather have had a match? Were you saying that we've crammed so much in so far? Would you have rather have had a game than no game?
No, I think. I'd rather have been in the cup. Yeah, I'd rather been in the FA Cup for sure.
Yeah.
That's.
Sorry, I weren't touching. I hand on heart weren't meaning that. I just thought, would you have rather had a game or that extra training, just try and get that fitness? I'm just thinking with obviously Cameron King and a few players not quite 100% at the moment. Was it more beneficial to have that extra fitness training, or would you have rather have just had a match? And I completely forgot that.
Well, I think
we're out the cup.
Yeah, I think the breather to a degree has been beneficial. I think it's given us an opportunity to work more at how we would like to work in training. We should have had a county cup game, a senior cup game, which was cancelled, which probably would have been more beneficial, because it's something that's not quite as high intensity as a National League game, but we could have given minutes to some lads who, were trying to get back to full fitness.
Yeah.
So that game would have been the ideal sort of middle ground, really, because it had given us enough time to get some lads minutes, but it wouldn't have been at the normal intensity of the hectic National League schedule. So yeah. But Pompey in the cup would have been nice.
That's
a sore subject. Very sore.
It is a very sore subject.
Yeah.
So on a popular sports game then, that obviously we can't name, but it's kind of giving you a ranking on as a coach, which is quite interesting. But
okay.
it gives you your top attributes as motivating, So obviously you've mentioned about you being a motivator.
And coffee drinker.
He hasn't put that one yet, but it's put discipline and obviously utilising the youth team as your biggest main trait.
Right.
Now, is the youth team, is that something you're going to try and incorporate? I've noticed that pre-match, a few members of the youth team are there, training with the senior team.
Yeah, we're trying to build a really strong link with them. I think Steve Nicol, I should say that all the staff that we've come in to work with are brilliant. Great. The club as a whole is fantastic, and I can't stress enough how nice it is to be involved in a club, because there's a lot of, I think Gareth Southgate said it best when he got the England job. He said it's the best game in the world and the worst industry, and I think you find that throughout. But I genuinely, hand on heart, would say about Halifax Town, the people are brilliant, and I've not met anyone yet who's not in it for the club. Everybody wants the best for the club, from the chairman down. And listen, we've all got our faults and our shortcomings and our failings, and none of us are perfect, or none of us are brilliant, outstanding in any way, shape or form. But we've all, and I can say this about me and Pete coming in, have got the club's best interests at heart, and would want that above anything else. I've forgotten the question.
That's all right. It's I was just saying.
It was about the youth team, weren't it?
Well, it was about the top football game.
And the
football game.
Yeah, and the thing that got me started on that was Steve Nicol, who's great.
Yeah.
What a guy. Can't do enough to help. He's very professional, very organised. He was in today with us, taking different parts of training for us. So as we go into our session, we can get little bits of more specific work done with various players. So, 2 or 3 coaches can go away and take smaller numbers of players at different parts of the session. He comes, he does it, he does a good job, he gets on with it.
Would you say that feeds off the way that you and Pete came into being into football? Because Pete alluded to the idea that sometimes he just kind of turned up, especially with Oldham, just so he could be there, and he'd get little sessions here and there. Do you think that could be something you're looking at here with Steve taking off little bits and pieces?
I think it's funny because we sort of talk about the expectations of certain people in the game, and the sense of entitlement that a lot of people have around the game, and the reality is it's tough, and for most people you've got to do a lot of work for very little money, if any, a lot of the time, to one, get the experience, 2, make a name, and 3, develop. So there is an element of that. I respect anyone who goes out and does the hard yards, but Steve's a professional. He's very good. He knows what he's about, and he knows his way around the training ground. But it's great for us then to be able to him to be around what we're doing, so he can then filter that back to the academy and the youth team. What we've got at the moment, we've got a couple of lads who've come through the youth team who train with us on a daily basis, who are out getting experience at counties level, who hopefully will be able to progress on at Evo Stick in the next few months, and then we've got long-term progression and development plans for these lads, so that'll be the same with the youth team. We don't really expect there'll be anyone come through the youth team and at 18 be ready to join the first team squad. It's highly unlikely.
But you're still getting that kind of experience for them to train with the senior team.
We're getting them experience, and what we're trying to do is get them playing out at a lower level, because we can see that there's something there, and we think, in 18 months' time, then we'll have players who've been around us, they know how we work, they know what our demands are, they know what our expectations are. They've been playing men's football for 18 months to 2 years, so they've got used to getting kicked and kicking.
Especially in the non-league system.
Yeah, and we want them to do that. We want lads who stand up for themselves. So we've got long-term progression plans for these lads, and anyone coming through the youth team. We want homegrown boys. Everyone does.
So you prefer that then in the January transfer window, getting someone else that that's played for another club, that's been around, and do you prefer to? Yeah,
you look at the likes of Matty Brown, Josh McDonald. Who've been around it and developed. I know Matty Brown's an older player, but he's developed with the club. Josh Mack similarly. We want lads who develop with the club, and we're not naive we've been around youth football long enough to know that we're not going to get hundreds of players through, and we're not going to. It's highly unlikely that we're going to fill a team full of Halifax homegrown players. But if we can get a core of players who spend the lion's share of their football lives with Halifax Town, then that can only be good for the club. And they become financial assets as well, so there'll be, hopefully the odd one that goes on to bigger and better things, like maybe one or two previous players at the club.
Jamie Vardy, Lee Gregory, Mark Roberts, Matt Pearson, etc.
One or two.
Is there any more in there?
Jeff Horsfield.
Yeah, and I think...
Oh, you set him off now. He's going to go.
Yeah, I'll just carry on.
I think we can do that. I think, the club, there's a pull there because it's a big club. I think it's a well-run club. I think it's highly respected, certainly throughout non-league, and I think throughout those in league football who know the club respect the way it's run and the way it operates. If we can bring that side of the to the football, that we work hard to develop our own players so that the people see the fruits of that. I don't see why that can't happen, and these players can grow with the club, and hopefully as the club progresses and the team gets better and gets promoted and what have you going forward, then why can't these players grow with it and start to become first team Football League players with Halifax Town?
Nathan Clark's a Haligonian.
Really?
So I mean, we couldn't really had a better sort of role model or player. It's Pete Wild sung his praises, like he's a great professional and stuff, and he's from Halifax.
Yeah, we've got
born and bred.
Well, the two lads that, I mean, Clarkie and Brownie, the two real sort of father figures of the team. They're
experienced duo, aren't they?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. No, but you alluded to Josh McDonald. This is his 4th or 5th season. I mean, he's spent half of it injured, unfortunately, and he's only 21, 22.
Yeah.
If that.
Yeah.
So he's Yeah, you were saying there's sort of a good pair.
Yeah, they're great, and they're a nice balance as well, because they make a nice couple, actually. Yeah, they would do.
Yeah.
They're
brilliant.
Yeah, that's it.
Brownie's got that little bit of grit about him, and I think when he speaks, players listen because he's very direct, and he's sort of nonsense type of guy.
Yes.
Clarkie, likewise, players listen to him as soon as he speaks because he's been there, done it, he's seen it all, he's done it all, he's and they want to be where he is. Do you know what I mean? When they're his age, they want to achieve the things he's done and still be playing at a good level like he is.
That is 605th appearance now.
That's right.
Over 500 in Football League.
Yeah, which is phenomenal. And if you're a player like we've got, how many players have we got between the ages of 20 and 24?
Quite a few.
I think you might know better. I think we were 4th at the beginning of the season. We were 4th from bottom in terms of the average age in the league. So 4th youngest, basically.
There's only what, Clarkie and Brownie over 30.
I think Brownie's 29. Actually.
Is there? He just probably looks old.
Yeah, he's just been around a long time.
Do you know what? That's right. Because Brownie is younger than me. I always make a note of that. And the manager of Halifax Town is only 3 years older than me now, which is quite scary.
Age is just a number.
Yeah,
anyway.
age is just a number. Yeah. Sorry, Brownie.
Yeah.
Let's just go back to away from Halifax Town, but to you as a fan. So, kind of, what was your first match watching?
I'm not allowed to tell you that.
You're not allowed to tell me that at all?
Well, I can, I will do, but don't tell anyone.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
see, I'm a United fan,
Okay.
and my first game was actually at Main Road.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was accosted and taken as a small child. So.
Oh, right. Aside from Halifax being your team.
Yeah, Halifax is my team.
Yeah.
It always has been.
We'll go with that, yeah.
But I like to see Man United do. Well, I'd like to see them do better. And that's where my allegiance was.
Anyway, thank you, Chris Millington. That's the end of the SHAYCAST. Ollie's at the wheel and all that.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
no,
thank you.
it's just because actually, interestingly, the Skircoat, we were talking about this, the Skircoat stand. Did you want to mention it about how
I can do. I wouldn't mind to,
Go for it.
mind talking about Halifax Town again. The Skircoat stand actually used to be part of Main Road about 100 years ago, and somehow we managed to acquire it. I literally think they dismantled it and brought it over on a load of trucks, and it was the either the Hyde Road end or the Hive Road stand from Manchester City. Yeah,
no way.
Back at the turn of the 1900s. Yeah, it's part of Main Road. That
right.
There you
So
go.
there will have been Man United fans on there, though, won't there?
Thanks to
There
Chris
you go,
Millington and the
so-
SHAYCAST. That's all we've got. That's all we've got for tonight. Thank you, everybody.
It's an education show, so there we go. So,
Just quickly, we've beaten Man City and Man United as well, and FC United. So we've sort of beaten all three Manchester clubs, which is quite a rare feat.
Yeah.
Mostly due to the fact that FC United are a non-league club.
Yeah, that's an interesting
It's a
fact.
nice little. Yeah.
so
There's been subsequent visits since.
Yeah, that would quite gone the way.
Yeah.
So what was your kind of first thoughts on Halifax Town then when you first arrived?
Yeah, well, I know the club from obviously, working with teams who've played against them. So knowing the club and knowing some of the players and not necessarily personally, but knowing of them. I remember Pete phoning me when he was due to come for an interview, and I was at I think it was a course at St George's Park.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was a lunch break when I was outside wandering around on the phone to him, and it was exciting, the prospect of getting the opportunity to come to Halifax, because I think there are the constraints that are on every lower league and non-league football club, but it's a club with history. It's a club with a heritage. It's a club with it's a one club town, which I think is great. I think there's something really good about that, and it's got loads of potential. I think it's a club that can grow, and let's not get too carried away. But there's definitely growth there. There's opportunities to grow the model that's already there, in terms of what we've got, in terms of our contact time with the players, in terms of what we do, in terms of the time we have with the training, with the players at training. There's opportunities to do more, and therefore more rewards on the football side at the end of that. So yeah, it was really exciting. Following that, coming into the club, seeing what's in place, we've got a decent training facility. We've got a good group of young players. There's a great fan base. What a fantastic home the Shay is. It's
all right.
Well, to you, but I mean, was it?
Okay.
No, it's fantastic. It is. It's got everything that you would want going in as a manager, assistant manager, coaching team. You go in and you think, well, we've got the tools we need here. Of course, we want more.
Yeah.
If we would never be successful if we just settled for what we've got. We want more time with the players. We want better facilities. We want
Clark and Brown to get married.
Yeah, we want a massive transfer kitty. We don't.
Yeah.
We understand that there are certain things that are going to constrain how we operate, and that's absolutely the same. Whatever level you're at, it's just more magnified at our level. But the exciting thing is the potential that's here, and the fact that we've got a group of players who on our day, and as we go throughout the season, we're going to play some really exciting football, and that for me is just brilliant.
We seem to have gone through all we've come back, we've hammered teams, we've held on, against Chesterfield, which has been the kind of most exciting game so far that you've kind of been involved
Can't
in?
pick one. I think there's been moments in a number of games, and again, this is where I'm getting a bit, God, it's so boring.
Don't worry, I love that. I just collect numbers about town. I'm pretty boring as well. So please elaborate.
Yeah. So, but it's moments in games for me. It's moments when you see a player do something that you've been trying to encourage them to do, trying to work with them to make them better at it, trying to get them doing a little bit more of. It's moments in games where we've been working on dominating possession in the opposition half, and all of a sudden we're stringing passes together, and we're doing, we worked a lot in the early part of the season because we came in. There weren't a great deal of expectation around Halifax Town at the beginning of the season. We weren't going to do very well, and there was all kinds of
that kind of stuff.
Oh, fantastic. So we worked really hard on going, right, well, we're going to be hard to beat, and we're going to hammer teams on the counter-attack. And the first month you saw that, we
Top of the league,
very solid, very condensed at the back. We made sure we were hard to beat, and we had the wingers flying forward and some of the counter-attacking goal. Then you're top of the league, and it changes because people come in and they want to sit behind the ball. They don't want to attack you
so the plan B. This is
so then we have to look at, right, how do we break them down? that's the Forth Road Bridge, and that's the never-ending project. You're always trying to do things to break teams down when they come and sit in behind you. But what a mark of respect that teams are approaching us in that way. So there are moments in each game where you see something come out that you've been working on, and we've been encouraging, and we've been trying to cajole out of the team or out of individuals, and you start to see it. And those are the things for me that really excite me. And yes, I love beating Barnet 4-2, and I love these
big games.
These games that where we do something. I think the moment of the season so far is probably Clarkie's.
I was just about to comment that. Did you teach him that then? Or did you
yeah, that was me. Yeah, we've been working on that. Yeah, I can't even kick it that far. So, so there was that, and there's been a lot, but it's moments in games as opposed to one particular game, I think, for me. What about you, lads? What's your highlights been so far?
To be honest, it's quite self-centred, but my highlight's actually been involved in the club more on the media side and been able to just rub shoulders with all of you, really. I seem to have come in at a really good time for the club. Everybody's positive, everything's on the up. So, just that, and been able to almost be given a licence to do what I want behind the scenes, almost, because it's all just for the benefit of the club. It's pretty much what you've said. Nobody's in this club for any other reason than to make it better. And I've just grown up an absolute die-hard Halifax fan, so I'm using those kind of skills just to show my love for the club. I've shed tears over this football club more times than I care to imagine. In fact, when I did
tears
that
of joy
video,
as well, I hope.
Oh yeah, tears of sorry, they are tears of joy. I did a video about the Skirket stand recently.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah,
and I edited in when we scored a goal against Rushden, and I was just talking it through. I was watching it with my mum, and I'm not afraid to admit it. As I was telling her, I literally just started crying, because I was just back in that moment again, being 9 years old, at the front of that packed Skirket stand as Jamie Patterson scored. He waved his shirt over his head, and I so wish on the day I'd have done that myself, actually recreated that celebration. I certainly wouldn't have got as many views, but it did me good. I can put myself into moments at the club. No, they are mostly tears of joy. If we have a big crowd, I can't believe how many people want to come and watch us, or I can't believe how much coverage we get, or even now I'm sort of like a little bit. Yeah, I'm just such a proud Haligonian that. But the highlight of this season, I think, was going away to Chesterfield, somewhere we've never really done well, and for an hour of that game, they might as well have just. I don't know. We were just awesome. I mean, awesome, but it's seen us just play with that little bit more freedom this season. Because we're a pretty drab team last year, actually. We kept 22 clean sheets, but 16 of them were 0-0s, roughly. So yeah, it's seen players last year where we could see as well. I saw as a spotter where you could tell they were a little bit shackled, and it was like we just need to just release that, and it's happened this year. We're starting to see. I think we're starting. I'm talking as if I've done this. Like we're seeing sort of like things that we saw last year. Like we're seeing a little bit more freedom instead of just all putting 11 men behind the ball, basically. Although it worked, and just a bit like Charlie. I mean, Pete was very, very frustrated at the end of that game, saying, "How can people pay to watch this?" and all that kind of jazz. And that were us last year.
Oh well said.
Yeah, that was us last year.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I suppose my one was the Ebbsfleet game.
Clarkie scored from his own half.
That was Lewis on the thing. But what happened is on that, because we weren't expecting it. We were getting ready to do the post-match interviews. I spilt my coffee to the point of because I drink a lot of coffee as well. You see,
good lad.
so I'm similar to you. But I spilt it everywhere, and I even spilt wrong on the Twitter, and it was one of our biggest tweets in the season. So that was quite amusing. But yeah, I think that was definitely because that was the point. Because I saw you against Oldham. And that was the first competitive game, and then it was kind of, are we going to progress, or are we actually going to listen to these people that have said, oh, we're going to get relegated and all this kind of stuff? But then watching that game, it kind of gave the fans and myself a bit of optimism because, we played really well.
Something changed at that Oldham game, though. I've spoken about it before on the SHAYCAST. I don't know what it were because I just got soaked like everyone else that was pitch side and on that pitch. But there was something, it's so cliched, there was something different in the air that night, even from just that friendly. And I don't know if it was just the relief of, thank goodness we've actually got a friendly and we can see our team, or what it were, but there's just something, even like we dominated that game. I know it was only friendly for what, 55, 60 minutes, and Oldham came into it a little bit more, but we still kept a clean sheet. So yeah, even from that point, there was something just changed. Like, I don't know what it was. Something just something happened for the better. Definitely.
Brilliant. And I suppose from your football career, what's the best moment? Obviously, being at Halifax is your best one, but in your whole entire football career, you must have had a best moment.
I think you'll have heard this with Pete. I think it's hard to beat Fulham away last year. It's hard to beat.
Didn't
that.
mention it.
Yeah, I mean, and again, the result was great. The experience, the stadium, the fans, that all the things that go with it. But in my own inimitable fashion, it was because we played exactly how we trained. We set up a certain way, and again, I say it with the utmost humility. It wasn't. I'm not saying we did that. The players did it. But the things that we wanted them to implement and try to get across to them, they did really well. We had the luck, the drama of a penalty miss, and all that goes with it. It was just really top occasion.
Was that something where, like, you're obviously going to scout your opposition, but did you change your approach for that game, and they acted on that to a T, or did you do something you were doing all season and it just still clicked even against a Premier League team?
Yeah, well, we'd been in charge for a number of games. We haven't been in charge long.
That's right. Sorry.
It was, but the way we set up was it was the way any team would have set up. But it was utilising the strengths of the players we had and the way that came out. We knew that. I think they were really struggling in the league.
Yeah, they were down the bottom.
Yeah, and I mean, Oldham,
they'd still spent 100 million that summer though. So
yeah, they brought in some really strong players, and when you got Schürrle and Mitrovic coming on, it's pretty
quite
terrifying.
It was against Claudio Ranieri's, wasn't it?
That's right. I wouldn't have minded to see him pairing up against Clark though.
Yeah,
Mitrovic, that'd have been. Because I absolutely love Peter
tussle.
Clark.
Yeah,
he's my third favourite defender.
Well, I think the great thing about it was that the lads obviously worked hard. They implemented what we were looking to do. But when you're playing a team who are struggling, don't matter how good the league is they're in, they're a struggling team. Yeah. And you could see a level of fragility about them, regardless of the fact that they were technically excellent. The system, some of the rotations, we stood there thinking, flipping heck, if we're not really on point, we could get a real tonk in it. So although you look at that, you still could see a level of fragility about them, and something in the reaction to when things didn't quite go their way that you felt we've got a chance here. Is there was a resilience about us that was, we've got nothing to lose. We'll go after them and we'll play our own game. And if we win, fantastic. If we lose, then we were always expected to. So. Yeah, there's I don't know what it is, but there's something in watching a struggling team and seeing that fragility in them, regardless of how good they are. It's common throughout all teams that aren't doing well, I think.
Have you ever faced Halifax Town as a player?
No.
That's answered that then.
There you go, straight away.
Fair enough, then.
Final one from me then, because obviously you talked about Paul Scholes kind of being a mini inspiration, but who's been an inspiration throughout your career?
Oh, I've been lucky, really, for nobody from South Manchester. I think,
Withamshire.
That's it, yeah.
Or your first player, or someone that kind of you clicked with and was like, right, okay, I want to become part of football.
I'm going to list a load of people for you now.
Go for it. I've got my pen
here. He's the one who being around him and seeing him work closely. Very clear on what he wants, very clear on what he knows, very clear on motivating players, very good at sort of deconstructing them to then rebuild them. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if deconstructing is the right word, but breaking them down to then rebuild them as a player. He was fantastic. Obviously, watching Paul Scholes operate in the way he did, inspirational. I wouldn't for 1 minute be able to work the way he works because I haven't got what he's got and I haven't been where he's been. but he was very inspirational to watch. Similarly with Frank Sinclair, worked closely with Frank, and you know he was someone else again who I don't think you can learn what him and the likes of him and Paul Scholes have got. I think it's just that they've been around the game at such a level and around certain people. When they talk about working with Alex Ferguson and Frank talking about when Ruud Gullit came to play under Glenn Hoddle with us at Chelsea, and you get to hear about the different nuances of how people at the very top of the game were operating and do operate. So I've been fortunate enough to have worked quite closely with a number of people, and there are others who I won't bore you with because you'll be here all night. But there's a number of people who can just share things with you. There's certain coaches who you know, a number of who have become friends. There's a lad, Joe Sargison, who works at the FA, who's just recently come back from working with Östersunds in Sweden, and he's you know, his knowledge of the game, his understanding, and the final one I should mention is a fellow who was a coach educator with the FA who you know sadly passed away not so long back, who I was fortunate enough to be taught by on the A licence, the UEFA A licence, and other courses. A fellow called Dick Bate, who's well known around coaching circles, who his ability to inspire and motivate coaches was just phenomenal, and his knowledge of the game, you know. He'd talk about players in clubs that you'd never heard of, but he'd know the detail, he'd know the history of them, he'd know the best players, he'd know how they operate, and you know, these are people who you can just sit and listen to and watch work, just phenomenal. So yeah, there's no shortage. You know, I've missed a lot of people, but I can mention those people most clearly because they're just operating at a different level to us mere mortals. So,
at the moment, but you can get to that level.
They're probably sat somewhere now saying the same thing about me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Chris Millington will be there now. He'll have a mug of coffee in his hand and telling the tale. Yeah.
Brilliant. Dave, do you have anything else to add, or? I was thinking about it.
I'm taking a moment to just think, actually.
Speaking of which, in this football game, they have put you as your team mentality, your best formation is a 4-1-4-1. I don't know whether they've got that accurately. And you've also played attacking football rather than emphasising on defence.
Oh, right.
I don't know whether that's true or...
Yeah, I think they've probably made a lot of that up.
All right, there you go then. Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, it'd be interesting to ask people like Pete what my approach is, because I like the attacking side of the game, and I like the sort of the balance between counter-attacking and possession football. It really intrigues me that, and at what point it changes from a counter-attacking to a balanced possession type of game, and how your formation sort of fits into that. And I think we work very clearly. And I hope that people see this. We try to have 4 very attack-minded players on the pitch, you know, regardless of the tweaks in formation we might make, and they are generally only tweaks. We don't come massively away from what we believe in, but we like to have 4 attacking players. So the others are there to support, and we like to have full-backs who've got some level of attacking ability. We like to have central midfielders who've some level of attacking ability. But I love a clean sheet. I do. I like a clean sheet. So the last couple of weeks have been pretty painful for me, and there's been a lot of soul searching. But I think there's.
So should we put balance then? Is that our...
For me, yeah. If you want to write off to this particular game and let them know, I think for me, I'd say I'm pretty balanced. Right. But it's probably best to ask someone else. I don't know.
Brilliant. Have you anything else? Have you managed to come back to it?
Well, we kept 6 clean sheets this season.
Yeah.
I think we've only drawn 2 of them though. Could be. Is that right? Why am I even saying is that right? I should know this. 0-0 against Charlie.
Yeah.
I'm sure we've had another 0-0.
Yeah.
Can't remember it.
No, we don't remember 0-0.
No, we don't remember that. But tell what we will remember. We've got another game this Saturday against Woking.
Yes.
Away from home. Are we excited for that? Back from back from a game, a weekend off. How long?
Yeah, I think so. The lads look really sharp this week. They've been brilliant. I think, as we've said, much as we don't want to, we don't want to be out of the cup, and the dream would be to have a good FA Cup run. I think the silver lining to that cloud, if you like, is the fact that we've had some time to sort of get the lads raring again, and it almost feels like the start of the season again for us to a degree. It feels like, right, we're ready.
Brilliant.
There's an urgency about what they've done in training this week, and there's a level. It's interesting as a coach, you learn to gauge sessions on the level of noise. The louder it is, the more you feel that there's something happening here. There's something going, and that's come back to a decibel level that makes me believe that we're up and at it again. And I think there'll be. I'm looking forward to it. I'm expecting a really good performance from us on Saturday.
Brilliant. So the Shamen are in action this Saturday at 3 p.m. kickoff. All that's left for us to say is thank you very much, Chris Millington, for coming on the SHAYCAST episode 5. Thank you as always, Dave, for coming along as well. And
thank you to you as well, OT Brackets.
And come on, you Shamen.
Come on, you Shamen.
Come on, you Shamen.
Brilliant. That's